Hey everybody, welcome to Shanth Enjeti Art. This is me, Shanth Enjeti, and it's good to see you guys here. Hopefully you guys can hear me alright. Let me just double check the audio. Seems like that's working, and so is the music. So hope everybody's having a good Sunday. I am going to be working on some pages, showing you some books that I'm looking at right now, and we're going to go from there. So this right here, what I'm working on, is a page from the comic I'm working on. And I'm going to adjust the camera so you can see it a little bit better. There we go. Let's turn that ring light off, though. I don't think I need that. So this is a page from my comic book that is already collecting email addresses on IndieGoGo. The link is in the description. And I started working on this book, oh gosh, I want to say a couple of months ago, and started making my plans to self-publish it, just like I did with my last two art books. So this is page 5. I've got about, oh gosh, let me think, about 8 pages in the cover done on the book already. And if this book funds, I'm looking forward to completing it and getting it out to you guys. So one of the things that's been influencing me and my work lately has been looking at all of the movies and all of the artwork that inspired me when I was a kid, and the stuff that still inspires me to this day. If you follow me on Instagram, and that link's also in the description, you saw that I was talking a little bit about Anton Furst's production design today, and Crash McCurry's beautiful creature and concept art. Crash McCurry, for anyone who doesn't know, did a lot of the character work, worked on with another artist, the character work for Rango, and then also did a lot of the creature and character design for the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. And so I've been following his stuff since he was working on Jurassic Park and Batman Returns, and just a huge fan of his. And that's the stuff that influences this book. That's what influences the stuff I'm working on. But other stuff, too, is in there. Like, I love theme parks. I love Walt Disney World, early theme park rides, and early Walt Disney movies, and I'll be talking about a little bit of that today. So I hope everybody's having a great Sunday. Been getting in the habit of getting this streaming stuff under my belt, so I'm a little rusty at it, and I'm a little new to it, so a little bit of both. Here we go. So this book is launching on October 1st, and everybody who signs up for the book in advance by clicking the link in the description to get on the email list will receive, if they back the book after their early sign-up, they're going to get a link to a secret perk, which will get them a free head sketch. And I'm either going to do that as a link, or I'm going to do that as just I collect the email lists and do it that way, because I have heard stories of people sharing secret perk links, and that's that's not something I can really do with a head sketch perk, because I can't do any that I don't have signups for, because that's a huge undertaking. So for those of you guys who sign up early, you'll get a little 4x6 original ink sketch, and I'm going to make sure they look great for all of you guys who do sign up. Let's see here. So right now I'm putting a wash on the main character and knocking back the shoulder just a little bit. You can see when you look at this design that there is a lot of the Tim Burton Batman movies, Anton Furst Batman movies in this mask design. And so there's going to be a little bit of that, and at the same time there's a huge influence of Snow White on this as well. Trying to get some of that creepy witch castle quality to it, Hammer horror movies, all that fun stuff. I love old set design, and I love old movies, and I want to try to give this a little bit more of a old school horror feel. And so that's what a lot of the artwork in this book is going to be. And this page is the one that I was working on for a little bit, and then I took a break from it to work on the design of a character that you've probably seen in my other videos, the last couple of videos I did. And I kind of do that sometimes when I'm working because I want to make sure that I have an understanding of where the book is going and what the design is going to be before I get to certain points in the story, and I wanted to make sure I solved that before I continued on this, because I know everything in this page, what it's going to look like. I'd already designed everything. But I'll be taking a look at and showing you guys some of the books that have been influencing me in this project in a little bit, so that you can see some of the influences. Let's see here. I'm going to try a little camera test here. Let's see here. Somehow I moved that off. Oh, did that get moved? Let me see here. Did I hit the pan button is the next question. I did, didn't I? There we go. Okay, so I didn't want to pan. I wanted to zoom. There we go. That's a little better. Look at this. All the exciting things that come with this software. There we go. Wow, that's crazy. So yeah, here's a little bit of a closer view of what I'm doing. So what I'm doing with the musculature right in this area is I'm just kind of putting in some big shadows before I go into full detail mode. And the thing that allows me to do is to, you know, kind of get a sense of what the shapes are going to be, as opposed to, and you know, getting the values correct before I go in and make all the detail happen. And it just makes the whole process a lot easier, because composition is such an important factor when you're doing your work. And so right here, I'm kind of just trying to flesh out the musculature, make this figure have a little bit more weight and a little bit more gravity to it. And let's see here. Got that. And so again, sometimes I'll work wet on wet right here, like I've got a little bit of water down there, so I can kind of play around with that and drop paint into it, as opposed to just putting, you know, the paint already mixed in there. I've got a little bit of water, so I drop that paint in and it has a different effect to it. I'll give you a little example of what I mean right now. So if I take water and I fill this area in, and obviously some of the color I just put down is going to bleed into it, but that's good. That's sort of what we're trying to do here. And then I take this, once I've got that area wet, and take some pigment and drop it in there. You get that nice little watercolor effect where it spreads across. And so that allows me to kind of play around with and rough in various areas of the painting in different ways. Typically I don't do a lot of wet on wet work, because I think that it's my stuff tends to have a little bit finer edges, so I would do a more opaque version of it, which is what you're seeing me do right here, which is I have a wet area, but I'm also adding in some white pigment into the blue so that it's got a little bit more of a opaque fill there. And that fill is what's going to kind of give me a sense of what the value is going to be here. So up we go. Rough in some more value there. And rough in some more value there. There we go. Let's see here. But yeah, I mean, I'm getting ready for the launch of this book on October 1st, and it all feels like it's coming together. I updated my website, which is shanthengetiart.com, and I was putting links into there, and a lot of things I haven't had a chance to update in a while. I've been kind of getting after a little bit more because of this launch. It's been a really good motivator for me to catch up on some of that work, and I feel pretty, you know, comfortable. I've launched 2 IndieGoGo campaigns and fulfilled them already, so it's not my first time doing it, but you know, this is a project that's very close to my heart, so I'm very very excited and nervous, definitely a little bit nervous, but I guess that goes with the territory. I watched I watched Shane Davis and Yanzi launch Inglorious Rex the other night, and to me, I can't imagine them being nervous, because you know, they're so well liked and they're their books are great, and they've, you know, had a ton of success already crowdfunding. So it was really funny to me to hear that, you know, that they were feeling nervous, but I guess it's only natural. I definitely am nervous about the whole prospect of it, just because I think everybody is right before a launch. Before I start a YouTube stream, I'm always like, well, you know, no one's going to even watch it probably, but you always feel that. You always feel that kind of nerves before you start things, so. Here we go. There we go. And so that's an example of, you know, some of the things that I do when I'm doing washes over my work. I'm going to see if I can move this light just a little bit so you can see the lighting. There you go. Just a little bit more. And now we're going to take that warm, drop a little bit more into that area that I've just painted. And you can see how that orange and blue, how that bleeds in together really nicely. Sometimes when I'm dropping values down the center of a figure like this, it's reminds me, or I'm thinking of an artist by the name of Travis Charest. He did a really brilliant book that was Wildcats X-Men Golden Age, and then he also did a book with Jodorowsky called Weapons of the Metabaron. And Travis has this really amazing way of dropping in these beautiful, almost melty shapes to create core shadows. And those core shadows just have this really beautiful quality. You know that it's a three-dimensional object and it's structured. There's nothing that feels noodly about them, but they've got that really great stylistic where it's not absolute realism by any stretch, and it's just really elegant. And I admire the way he does that. He basically creates a sense of volume without losing that essential comic book quality. Go. There we go. So now that I've got that value in there, I'm going to do the same thing to the shoulder. Or I should say, now that I've got that color in there, I'm going to do the same thing to the shoulder. So let's see what happens here. So I drop that in. And I've already got a little bit of a ground here, so makes it a little easier. And the same thing when I get to the far side of it, I'm just going to let some of that blue stay in there. There we go. Putting those worms and cools in there are the things that give it that richer quality to it. Let's see if I can move this camera over just a little bit so I can... Sorry again for the lovely sound there. There we go. Had a little bit of a shadow there, but I want to see if I can move that camera so I can get a little bit more straight on. There we go. It's wild. So this is the kind of thing when I was a kid I would have dreamed of, being able to actually do an art show. I watched Bob Ross, like probably a lot of people my age did, and, you know, never really imagined I would be capable of having a public access art show, let alone a camera set up in my house. But here we are, and that's one of the things that makes it fun, is being able to do this kind of stuff. There's the boss. Hey, Michael, how you doing, brother? It's good to see you. We got to get together and do some art stuff soon. I'm missing you, man. Great to see you. I'm so glad you could make it to the stream. Michael introduced me to Hammer Horror, and he will always get, I always send him a message on Facebook, he'll always get a private, you know, personal invite to all of my streams. That's just the way it's got to be. He's the captain of the Valiant, so it has to be done. So here we go. Yeah, I am very, very lucky with my artist brothers, that is for sure. Got a lot of people who do a lot of really inspiring work that I get to share ideas with and share work with. Oh, thanks. Yeah, I was looking at Michael Keaton in the Bat costume and looking at the way his eyes looked and the way that the mask was on his face, and I've been trying to kind of get a similar look as that. So we'll see how it goes. I always loved the production design in that movie. And then, of course, I'm trying to get a healthy amount of Hammer horror into this. I've been excited this week. I want to start decorating and getting in the Halloween mood early. I'm ready for I'm ready for the October horror videos that Michael does every year. I cannot wait to see what happens this year, what movies we do. At some point, I absolutely have got to do a stream with Michael for October. Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he has some fantastically piercing eyes in that movie. Yeah, I mean, he had a really great eye, mouth and jaw area in that costume, and that's a tough thing to do. Everybody always thinks that a certain actor will look good in that Batman costume, but it's really hard to do, and you have to almost tailor make the costume for the different facial types. But I think they got his perfect and did a really great job with it. He's lucky he didn't get cast during the time of the internet, because my goodness, I mean, he got enough trouble for with fans writing in and everything like that. So yeah, you're absolutely right. I was just saying when he was announced. So I don't know if you ever read stuff like this, but I was a big time reader of a magazine called Comic Scene, and then another one called Starlog. I read those magazines all the time. I would get them whenever I was in, a magazine store that sold them, which there weren't. It wasn't exactly easy to get that kind of stuff, near where I lived. And you'd have to go to a comic book shop or maybe get to a Walden Books if you had one that you could get to. And but I loved those magazines, and I remember there was all this talk about Michael Keaton is playing, and they had all these, comedic drawings of him, and Beetlejuice is going to be playing Batman. And then that first trailer dropped, and everybody was like, wow, that looks so cool. And Jack Nicholson just did a great job as the Joker. Really was fantastic. And it was just such a fun event movie. I remember how, comic book fans were really brought together by that, when it came out, that it was kind of like a, for everybody my age, it was a huge deal when that flick came out. We were just so excited and I loved the Batman Adam West series too, but, so I liked it all, and I still watch that. That's one of my favorite movies to watch, is the Batman the movie. It's so great. The Penguin submarine and all that. I love that stuff. Let's see. So this character, when I was designing it, first started out as looking slightly different and being another character, but the basic design was wanting to create a pulp style old school hero, but I didn't want it to feel old fashioned. So I guess a really good example of what I mean is when the Rocketeer came out, I had never seen King of the Rocket Men, and I know that was an influence on it, but the Rocketeer worked on its own. And so I was thinking about everything I love about superheroes, sword and sorcery, pirates, and all of that kind of stuff. And I wanted to create something that, had that classic mask look, but then had something that was a little bit supernatural. I wanted to create a supernatural superhero, for lack of a better way of putting it. And so when I was designing the character, I wanted to tie in the Cthulhu mythos. So I have this kind of symbol I created for the character that's almost like that kind of squid-headed character, two skull eyes like that, and then a big skull nose, but then these tentacles that come off of the face. And then the other thing that I wanted to do to make it look a little bit more like he was, what's the word I'm looking for? A little bit more ancient, was having this like little metal rod that goes through his nose. Now that metal rod that's going through his nose is going to have a little bit of a story to it, but the name of the character, which is NOSFERO, is, and I'm trying to think of the specific language it is, which Slavic language it is. but is literally translates to iron nose. So yeah, it's funny because it's short for Nosferatu, and I had this design for a while. Like, not that it's short for Nosferatu, but it's a word I used because I wanted it to allude to Nosferatu. And then I looked up what it meant in another language, and it was iron nose. And I went, this is ridiculous. This is meant to be. So sometimes there's happenstance in it. And I think that it was less hard for me to finalize the look of the character than it was to finalize the story. That was the thing that was difficult at first. And I think the reason why that was so difficult was because I was trying to... What's the word I'm looking for? I was trying to intellectualize the story a little bit too much. And it just, for me anyway, creatively, it's just death. Like, I just can't... whenever I'd sit down to write a story, I would try to think about, well, what am I trying to get tell the audience? What am I trying to convey? And I realized I want to entertain the audience. So what are the things that I want to see that would be entertaining? So for this mask, what I hope the character design calls to mind is the kind of swashbuckling, fun adventure. But I don't want it to be Captain Blood. I want it to be for what it is, the Rocketeer or Jack Sparrow. I want it to be something that feels new, but is of that time, but doesn't feel like it's trapped in that time. That it can kind of speak to a more modern audience. And so to me, that's what I was going for with the design. And it's everything about this feels very I don't know what the word I'm looking for. Almost like it's meant to be. I mean, everything has been easier on this than it usually is. So we'll see what happens when it launches. Fingers crossed. But no, that's a good question. I don't talk about that enough. I probably should. I need to have you on a stream. You can feed me questions. Be much easier. You're good at interviewing people. There we go. Well, if it's a live action film, I'm gonna have you direct it. That's what's gonna happen there. That would be so much fun. But yeah, I mean, for me, I was listening to a bunch of people who were, in CG, were talking about comics, and they were, talking about, making, work that is just the work. And one of the things for me about this that I can't overstate is it's like, I just love comics so much. My number one goal is going to be to try to just tell the best comic story I can, and just the most fun. Like, I want people to, when they're reading this, to just kind of sit back, put their feet up, and just have a blast flipping through the pages. That's what I hope, more than anything else. And, it's what I hope with my art books too, is that it's going to have that quality to it, and that's what makes it fun. And I've listened to a lot of the stuff. Actually, I was watching some of your reviews just today. And it was interesting when you were talking about, what you expect from Hollywood and, versus, what you expect from, other avenues of storytelling. And it really got me thinking, and I hope that this feels like something that is good, but not by the numbers. That's the biggest thing I'm kind of looking for here. An adventure story that has classic elements, but doesn't feel like it's been, art directed to death, for lack of a better way of putting it. Oh my gosh, I buy, I still buy comics. I back a lot of IndieGoGo campaigns, so I've recently bought, what have I bought? I've bought Starblades, I've bought by Kyle Ritter, I've bought Cyberfrog, I've bought First Man by Andy Smith. So I've been buying a lot of stuff that's online. And one of the things for me is that in addition to that, I'm buying a lot of older stuff too, a lot of omnibus and a lot of collections. So yeah, I mean, right now it's mainly indie stuff I'm buying. Because, oh gosh, I almost forgot. Inglorious Rex, which I just backed recently, or I'm going to back recently. I haven't backed it yet, but I want to back that book as soon as I can, as soon as I get a chance. But I think that I know how long the campaign is going to be up, so I'm not concerned about it. And I've planned to back it. But it's a great book. It's about kaiju, MMA fighting, and kaiju, where you can kind of link into kaiju and basically fight as one. And so the human trains, and then they kind of link into the kaiju, and they do these MMA fights to keep themselves in shape before they have to actually go into combat and do battles. And it's Shane Davis's latest book, and I think it looks fantastic. Shane's art is fantastic. If you haven't seen it, it's Inglorious Rex, and it's on IndieGoGo. And it looks really fantastic. And let's see, what else have I bought recently? I bought a book called Lucent from an Australian comics creator, I believe. And that book looks like it's, fantastic. Great perspective, great drawing. What else? Let's see. Earthbound 2 by Per Berg. I just backed that recently. And let me think of what else I'm doing right now. And then let's see. The old stuff, then it's like, how many versions or copies of The Rocketeer can I possibly buy? It's like things like that. So yeah, but I still love comics. I love the art form. It's tremendous. I mean, if I have a collecting addiction, it's it's definitely movies, but I love comics. Comics were kind of my first love, but it's the indie stuff that does it for me these days. But then the Rocketeer and Ninja Turtles and all that stuff, that was all indie stuff. So I haven't changed that much. But back in the day, I mean, it was The Dark Knight Returns and Killing Joke and all those books that I was so into. Brian Bolland and all of those artists, I thought they were amazing. It was a great time to be collecting comics. In the entirety of the 80s was a really great time to be collecting books. And then, of course, there was some really cool stuff in the 90s, too. You can kind of see, I'm off the page there. You can kind of see, as I'm shaping things out here, how it starts to build up the anatomy and build up the torso a little bit more. And just kind of putting those edges in there, so that I can really make the structure of this figure come together and have that sensibility. So let me zoom out a little bit here so I can show a little bit more of the page there. There we go. So you can kind of see the force perspective I'm doing. He's going to be using his ring that he has in order to summon up this kind of demon dog type character that's going to take him away to the next, through this tunnel in between worlds, where he can kind of transport basically to different places by going through this kind of like hellish place. How long does it take you to come up with a story for a comic? How immersive do you feel the comic does and convincing? Oh yeah, well that's everything. So how long does it take me to come up with the story? Boy, that's a tough one. It might be a lot like when you're writing episodes of Valiant, which is to say that I think about the stories for an incredibly long time, or they percolate, and then all of a sudden I just know it's time to tell them. And so in this particular case, the day I made the decision to start illustrating the book, I had the story in my head. I had it pretty much figured out. So this was the way I've been creating things in the last couple of years has been really quick. It's been a very quick development process because I've got I just sort of feel as though I'm in one of those rare grooves that an artist gets into. And yeah, this one has been really quick. And from me thinking about that I'm going to do the book, I could probably look to my Instagram to figure out exactly what the timetable was, to now has been less than a year. I basically knew I was going to do this comic book, I want to say probably 5 or 6 months ago. And from 5 or 6 months ago to now, I've got, 8 pages of this more or less, underway, but I should say that 5 or 6 of them are done. I just am noodling, to try to get them ready, because those are going to be the pages I show when the book launches. I want to make sure that I've got them exactly where I want them to be. But yeah, very quick on this project. And as far as the immersiveness of the world, I'm somebody who really loves theme park ride design from back in the day. And so the world is really important to me. And one of the books that I'm actually is a great time to kind of talk about a little bit and show that I keep on my desk that's a huge influence for me is this book right here. Let me see if I can balance that. There we go. Is this book right here. And this book is The Art of Snow White and the Seven Dwarves. And this was done by the Walt Disney Family Museum. And this book shows so much of what the Walt Disney Studio is famous for. And actually, let me zoom way out here, because I'm going to need more space. There we go. So this book shows the kind of things that influence me and have influenced this book. If I tip this over just a little bit, there we go. It's a little bit easier. So here is a look at the kind of stuff, the background designs for Snow White that really influenced the work I'm doing. And these were done by artists like Gustav Tengren and, you know, illustrators of that era. And just look at how these watercolor background designs, which is another influence for my stuff, the coffins and the tombstones and everything, and the stonework and the skulls and the smoke coming out of the ceiling. This is the stuff that I want to kind of call to mind when I'm doing this stuff. Look at this world building here. Just unbelievable. All the books that are sitting there watercolored, that's what I want it to be about. So it's not just about the great character design, you know, that's in a movie like Snow White, but it's about the beautiful backgrounds that are in this story. And so, yeah, you can see all of the beakers and everything that's in here in these beautiful pencil drawings, but this is the stuff that's really influencing me as I do this work. I mean, just page after page of really evocative storytelling art. Just gorgeous stuff. Aren't those fantastic? Yeah, every single one of these backgrounds and characters, look at them. I mean, when I was growing up, and we talk about, obviously, influences and work that inspired us, when I was growing up, I would look at this stuff and think, why can't comics look like this? And obviously there were artists in Europe who were doing some pretty amazing stuff, Mobius, and other bande dessinée artists, European comic artists. But I always thought that there was this quality, this sort of American quality to these old stories that Walt Disney did incredibly well, and I wanted to see it somewhat represented, you know. And look at this, you know, the Seven Dwarves house. Look at how beautiful, you know, these pages are. They're just incredible. And then here's the reference imagery, and then here's the beautiful, you know, drawing of, you know, Snow White. And it's just great stuff. You know, as I look at this book, I'm just so inspired by the artwork and everything that went into the world building in this. And this is a classic example of, you know, some of the artistry and design that went into the instruments and all of the stuff that's in there. It's true, it is gone, and it's something that I think we can bring back. I think the films were inspired by those great European illustrators who then actually worked on this, people like Gustav Tengren. And I think if it's going to come back, then we sort of have to bring it back as illustrators, artists, and writers. I think it can come from us. And so that's my hope, you know, with this book, is to kind of be a part of creating. This book is so fantastic, and it's so worth, you know, getting a hold of. But look at all these designs. And it's hard to imagine that these classics, you know, these classic movies and classic designs didn't exist before this movie came out. And now they're just a part of the social fabric. Yeah, you're right. I mean, CG did totally take over everything. And it's funny, too, because, you know, this book that, you know, I'm currently is living on my desk, there's a great page to have open right there, influenced the stuff I was doing in my two art books. And I think you can kind of see how much this stuff has influenced the stuff I'm doing. You know, I mean, it's just classic, you know, color and story. So just imagine this stuff as a sequential comic book, and you get the idea of what you're getting into, you know, when you back this book. And you know my stuff well, but it's something that I can't overstate is the real fun of doing this. And when you flip through a book like this, I mean, look at the magic mirror and the face, the mask, you know, that's in the magic mirror. It's got such a fantastic quality to it, but you can see really how all of this stuff is influencing my work. You know, I mean, it's a huge part of why I do the things I do, is, you know, trying to create that beautiful illustration quality that was such a huge part of everybody's, you know, childhood experience, or I should say, left its mark on generation after generation of kids like myself. And so that's my plan, you know, when I'm working on this stuff, is to just kind of create something that has that rich, beautiful quality to it. And so that's who this character is. I mean, it's, try to imagine walking through a Hammer horror movie with production design by Anton Furst, the original Batman movie concept designer, that is set in, set in a combination of Pirates of the Caribbean, that theme park ride, and the Haunted Mansion, and you start to get an idea, but painted in watercolor. You start to get an idea of what I'm going for with this book. So it's nuts, but, you know, I've now got so many pages of it, I know what's going to happen. So it's kind of strange. It's a book I've been wanting to be able to make probably my entire life. And I keep hearing that from different people who are crowdfunding comics on IndieGoGo, which is so great. They say, this is a book I've always wanted to do. And there's nothing better than, you know, for me anyway, than backing creators who have delivered, you know, projects and all that other stuff too. And sometimes obviously first time creators, you know, I was a first time, you know, IndieGoGo publisher once, and I'm really grateful to everybody who backed that project and gave me a chance to deliver it. But it's really amazing to see some of these creators really being able to go creatively, you know, places that manga gets to go and not have to think about what the publisher will say yes to. It's a direct line to the fans, you know, and watching some of the, it's a really great thing to be happy for other people and other people's success. I know it sounds kind of corny, but it's how I've always been. And when you see people who are just really pouring their souls into their work, it's just such a joy to back them. And I really feel like I've, you know, had the opportunity to back some really cool creators in the last couple of years, and I feel really grateful for that opportunity, because I love art and I love helping people make art. Let's see, the animation, you know, Disney films is Spirit, yes. Oh yes, yeah. The Secret of Nim is, so this is gonna really date me, but you know how old I am, so it doesn't really matter. And I don't care. I just turned, actually, yeah, just as you know, I just turned 45 the other day. But I love that movie, and before the days of screen grabs, I paused the VHS of that film and took a Polaroid photo of the owl from Secret of Nim, because I thought that design was so cool. So that's another movie, when we're talking about visually that my world could, you know, kind of inhabit. That's totally what I'm thinking of. All of the kind of cobwebs and atmospheric lighting and really interesting environment scenes. I mean, that movie was visually stunning. Love that movie. One of my all-time favorites. Yeah, that's a great... I wonder if you've ever reviewed that movie. I would love to watch that movie and do a refresher on it, and then do a stream where we talk about it. That would be awesome. Love that movie so much. Visually just gorgeous, and Don Bluth just crushed it with that movie. Really stunningly done, and really dramatic too, as well. There we go. And right there, it's a little hard to see, but gosh, it's so hard to get the color right on this. But right in there, that's a really nice watercolor fade that just sort of happens when you're working in this technique. And I love the way that gouache works, and I love the way that the paper handles things. It's a really fun way to do projects and do work. See if I can zoom in on that again without messing up here. I probably will anyway, but let's just try it. And we'll move this up just a little bit more. Whoops. There we go. And we'll zoom so we can see a little bit more. So yeah, right in there. There we go. Make my screen a little brighter so I can see it. So right in there, you can kind of see what I'm doing with the color. Yeah, I need more. Oh yeah. I would love to see... Oh, that's right. We've talked about Dragon's Lair a ton. I can't believe I forgot to mention that one. Yeah, Dragon's Lair is an absolutely fantastic... I would love to see that. An animated movie of that crowdfunded. I think a lot of people would turn up for a crowdfunder for that, because it's just such a beloved property, and a lot of us have fond memories. And I remember when you were showing me your, like, you know, your Dragon's Lair inspired sort of work, and I remember sitting there and watching people play that game. I know how hard it was, and I just wanted to see the animation. So I was the kid that was standing behind the kids playing that game and just watching, you know, them drink the poison, you know, and then turn into a skeleton. I mean, it was such an amazing idea. I want to see a video game that has, you know, watercolor backgrounds, and really, I think we'll be there soon, but I think it'd be so easy to do, you know, in terms of, let me rephrase that. I know it would be difficult to do, but it would be, the things we're doing right now are so difficult, I don't think it would be much more difficult than what we're already doing. That's probably a more honest way for me to put that, because obviously I don't, my son is the 3D modeling expert, not me, so it might be easy for him, but I don't know if it'd be easy for me to ever contemplate such a thing. But yeah, I really admire video game artists. I've done some concept art myself and for different games and different projects, and it's always fun to do that kind of work. Really enjoy it. So now I'm just going to go in and put a little bit more of a wash in there. Move my light over just a bit. There we go. That's a little bit easier to see. And you can see how, like, all of these little gradations that I'm putting in right here with the gouache and watercolor, they're not timid because I've done this so many times that I'm not timid when I'm doing it. So it may look like I have some idea that I'm filling in some picture I have in my head, but the truth is, a lot of it is just letting the paint do what it's going to do and knowing how to get out of its way, and then doing a lot of this stuff based on muscle memory. And you got to paint a lot and practice a lot and build that muscle memory before you can really be free. So I did a lot of studying of, you know, drawing from, you know, different photos and images and different artists and illustrators too. I always think it's kind of weird when people say, actually, it's funny. Nobody who's good ever seems to say this to me, but every artist follows a particular artist for a while, and the more the artist knows what they're doing, and the more that they do things that you can actually learn from, the more successful you are. But we all start from looking at other artists. Let's see here. Oh boy, my most enjoyable project to work on is right now. It's this book. But I would say for the last two art books, every time I was working on one of those books, it's the best thing I've worked on in terms of I've enjoyed it more. I didn't start really enjoying my artwork until my 40s, which sounds rough to say, but I was just, you know, it was like pulling teeth. I've never been able to stop drawing and painting, and there have been times where I wish I could, to be honest. There have been times where I wish I could stop drawing, I wish I could stop painting, because it was so frustrating. And I just sort of had this kind of moment where I decided I'm going to go and try to bring something to my work. And, you know, I've got to just learn how to make artwork and commit myself to it fully. And I was struggling with it for a while. And then just one day I kind of, I guess, worked through it, and things went, you know, in the direction they went in. Hey, Thomas, it's good to see you. I hope you're doing well too, my friend. Oh, it's so great to see you in the chat. Excellent. Yeah, I mean, and so it's like, and Thomas knows this stuff because I've talked about it in when I was teaching, and oh, thank you, Thomas. And but yeah, I mean, I went through a period where my artwork was like pulling teeth, and I had a period where I really didn't do very much work at all for a year, and then ever since then, that would have been in 2000, I don't know, 2000, maybe 16 or 15, I can't remember when it was. All of a sudden I started painting, and I have not put the brush down in all that time. And I mean, I used to paint every day, but now I'm painting with purpose. So it's a really This book, I love doing this book. It's probably my favorite thing that I've ever done. And you know, working on these art books and self-publishing, I think it's what I was always meant to do. It's just too much fun. And I can get up in the morning and do this work all day. And I just don't get tired of it. And I think it just takes you a little while sometimes to get to that point with your work. You know, it's just a part of the process. There we go. But yeah, I mean, this is, and I have to say too, and I know you know this, but working on the Starship Valiant poster was a real example of that. I must have told everybody about that. And from start to finish, from conceiving the sketch to getting that thing underway and painted and done, it went so well. And I had never painted half of that stuff. I had a few likenesses, one alien likeness on there, and then a spaceship, which I've never really done that before. And you know, even though it was just being hinted at, and I had a blast on that poster, really did. And that was a really fun job. But again, a lot of the jobs I've been doing and projects and paintings I've been doing for the last, I don't know how long, have been a blast. I haven't stopped painting. It's great. It's taken me forever to get here. Yeah, well, I mean, you know, it was so based on the enthusiasm for the project. You sent me the rough cut for that movie, and I watched it. I loved it. It immediately started putting pictures in my head, like right from the get-go. Just watching Josiah and Presley's performance, and frankly everybody else's performance in that movie as well, it really got me, you know, got my creative juices going, so to speak. I just saw Gary Oldman in The Professional in my head. But it did, and I thought, wow, I have an idea for this poster, and I was actually very surprised that it came out and it went as well as it did, because I kept thinking all the way through it, I'm going, it seems like it's kind of flowing, but don't get cocky, you know, watch it fall apart, or watch me hit a roadblock with it. But man, was that a fun project. And I was so thrilled to work on that. That was so much fun. Really was a blast. So here's another example of putting in highlights. Now this paint on the ground is not really that dry at this point. And so this is kind of me, you know, working into it so I get a little bit of room to play, because the paper isn't totally dry yet. And yet I'm not working, you know, fully wet on wet at this point. So it just kind of gives it a nice blend and fade quality to it as I work in. There we go. And that starts to kind of make the barrel chest on this character a little bit more pronounced and a little bit more sculptural. So yeah, that was a really, really fun project, Michael. And again, thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of that. Anytime Valiant's doing anything and you guys think I can help, you just let me know. And that goes for non-Valiant projects you do too as well, by the way. I'm game for anything. Here we go. So yeah, I was actually really stuck and a little bit unsure of how this section of the painting was going to go, and it's really nice that, you know, you guys were here for the process on this as I was working on it, because you know, I really don't know. When I start these streams, I do not have any idea how it's going to go, and I have streams where it's really tough to paint, and then I have other streams where it just kind of flows. It's a very new thing to film myself while I paint, so. Oh, thanks. Yeah, I love painting eyes, and believe it or not, the eyes on this particular painting, I was just telling my wife this morning, the eyes were not coming together on this, and I had painted them out a few times, and then I kind of sat down and, you know, sort of woke up this morning and went, okay, I've got to get those eyes together before I can move on with this thing. And, you know, I just started working into them and trying to get all those different, you know, highlights together and get the soul of the character in there. And that's one of those things that is really important to me, is that the characters, you know, have some kind of feeling of having a soul when you look at them, and you feel like they're alive, and you know that you are invested in the journey that they're on and what they're doing. So that when you've got, you know, the sort of more supernatural and crazy stuff going on in the story, that it works. And you know, that's something that I really have gotten from your introduction and introducing me to Hammer horror films. So in this story, I'm going to be using a lot of the, you know, classic vampire horror movie stuff, you know, like the effect that holy water and crosses are going to have on the supernatural world, on vampires. That's going to be something I'm bringing back into my stuff. And, you know, I always loved those old, you know, like, gosh, what's another one? The Disney Halloween Treat Show that played every Halloween. And I'm officially starting celebrating Halloween this Labor Day weekend. I need to start celebrating Halloween. But they used to have this show called Disney's Halloween Treat that would play The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, and it would also play Night on Bald Mountain from Fantasia. And I loved those short films. And I loved the Fantasia Night on Bald Mountain, and I loved this Ichabod and Mr. Toad movies, but in particular The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. And so for me, that's another way in which, or another influence on these stories and the work that I'm doing, is those old classic, you know, scary Disney kind of movies. And I loved people like Mark Davis and the character artists who worked on those, and the believability they got and the expressiveness they got into their characters' eyes. So thank you so much for that compliment. I do appreciate it, because I put a ton of work into this character's eyes. Ton of work into it. And I mean, it's funny because I really do consider myself to be more of a drawing artist than a painting artist. And I handle my brush much like I would a pen or, you know, pencil, which is to say I kind of go along the edges and sort of shade things and kind of try to bring and develop that value system as if it's with a pencil drawing. So it gives it that kind of richer, more sculptural look to it. And that's the plan, you know, going forward, is to, you know, every single page of this book, I want it to have that really beautiful, rich kind of quality to it. You know, all the details, all the figures. Like, this figure has a really long way to go. The face isn't put in yet, the arm isn't put in, and so all that stuff is going to come together very soon before it becomes, you know, one of the characters that are a little bit more well established. So when we're looking at the Snow White stuff, you can kind of see in this sequence where these characters are, and this is a very small panel, are running up the stairs. I got to think about the characters' eyes. I got to think about the characters' faces. I've got to think about the light hitting the brickwork and the stones that are further down, as you've got this kind of, you know, environment of them running up the stairs in this very tiny panel. And really think about how the characters are going to come together as they transform into various, you know, bat creatures and all of that kind of stuff. So this is to me what the goal is to really put those details in, so that when somebody buys this comic and picks this comic up, they just want to keep going back to it over and over and over again, because the artwork is so evocative and the visuals are so rich and stunning. So even though this figure right here is tiny, there's that figure next to my thumb, just to get a sense of how small, you know, these figures are. I want to make sure it's a fully realized world, you know, with these great stone arches and this you know, Necronomicon, you know, esque book here, you know, this great grimoire, and how it all comes together, and how all these characters fit into that space. And so yeah, I'm really looking forward to, you know, launching this campaign on October 1st, and you know, I'll send it out to everybody on the email list, and everybody who signs up for that email list is going to get a 4x6 ink head sketch. So make sure you click the IndieGoGo link and get on our email list if you want to make sure that you get that. And but I am so excited to launch this book. I've been waiting to do this for a while, and you know, I will say that I couldn't be more excited about it, and nervous too, but really excited. Put that little cleft in the chin there. There we go. Just a little bit. Have a little bit of a cleft in the chin. Let me see. Well, this is a something I don't know if anyone would suggest someone to do, but I design all of my characters on the paper as I work. So I started this character and I redesigned him while I was drawing him. I had the mask pretty well down, but I redesigned his gloves and his boots while I was actually doing the work. So it's funny, but it's it you know, I would say it went through a bunch of iterations, but to be fair, I've had this character pretty much figured out since I did the second art book. He's actually on the cover of the second art book. And so this version of him is pretty close to what I ended up doing in the comic book. The sword changed a little bit and a few of those other things, but I think there's 2 illustrations with him in it in the second art book. So yeah, I mean, ever since then, I've had a pretty good idea of what he was going to look like, but he didn't have his gloves or any of the other stuff that he has, a few more things that he has now. But so it went pretty quick, but I do change it every now and again, and let's see. And as far as him becoming what I wanted, the biggest thing I had to do is fight the impulse to intellectualize it and just make it fun. It's based off of a bunch of different things that I like, but it's also just this... It's hard to describe, but when I'm designing a character, I'm not having any fun when I'm doing it, I have to just say to myself, maybe I need to scrap this. And when I'm having a good time and the idea has some merit to it, it all seems like it just flows. And this character, I can honestly say, the story, and the last 2 art books have just seemed to flow. And the only thing I think that I have any concern over is if the audience, if backers will show up. But on my end, I feel like I know this story, I know these characters, and I'm totally confident about the whole process of it. I've never experienced anything like this with my comic stuff, so it's I've done comics before and I've had some pretty good moments, but my skill level has never been anywhere near what it is right now. So yeah, it's been a great process of working on this book. And like I said, anyone who's hasn't subscribed to the YouTube channel, please do. It's going to be documented here. The whole process of making this book is going to be documented here. And you guys are going to get to see it. And the same thing goes with my Instagram, which the link for that's in the description as well. If you don't follow me on Instagram, do check that out, because it's got, my whole process of me going down this road as an artist started a couple of years ago on Instagram, and it's led me here. It's almost like, again, it sounds kind of, hokey maybe, but it's almost like it was meant to be, to get me back to this, the style that I wasn't working in and I had worked in before, but kind of, was just not sure where my artwork was going. And all of a sudden, just had a bunch of breakthroughs on a personal and professional level that kind of made me realize this is, put me in my first really big time groove as a artist and illustrator. And that's what gave us, the first 2 art books in probably about a year apart, I think those 2 art books were. And I mean, I've done more paintings. I had a friend of mine who said that I've done more paintings in the last couple of years than, a lot of people have done in the last 10. And granted, that's probably not true for a lot of working illustrators. I have friends who are storyboard artists and work in all kinds of other fields. But I was doing all of this stuff while, working on a bunch of other different things. And it was just crazy. It was on top of everything else. So, yeah, it's been a great process. Really been a great process. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Oh, that's so great. So here's what I'm going to do on that really wonderful note, Michael. Thank you for that. I'm going to wrap up. I'm almost at an hour. And so I just want to thank everybody who's signed up for the email list. I'm looking forward to doing your head sketches. I'm going to be actually doing some head sketches on future streams so you guys can see what those are going to look like. And this book is launching on October 1st. And thank you guys so, so much for all of your support, for tuning in, for subscribing. And a special shout out to Thomas Calamari and, of course, the amazing Michael of The Choice Voice. Subscribe to that channel if you haven't yet. He's one of my artist brothers and one of my brothers in Trek. And so, yeah, guys, have a great evening. And thank you so much for tuning in. and I will talk to you guys soon, and I will have another stream going soon, and I'll try to make sure I schedule it so you guys can check it out. All right, take care, everybody. See you soon.
King Kong ain't got nothing on you!